Hello, it's Tom Donald from the London Contemporary School of Piano. Today, we're going to look at four-part harmonization and arrangement techniques for the piano. Wow, that's a bit of a mouthful, and it's quite an important topic because many of you are arranging your own little arrangements on the piano. You're looking at chords and melodies, and you're trying to string the two together. And you've noticed it's not always easy. I'm going to show you some great strategies. And these strategies today will really help bring your chord playing to life. And by the way, if you're a fan of our work at the London Contemporary School of Piano, do head on over to our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, and get our free resources kit that accompany these videos. And there's some really important sheets and handouts on that free resources kit that's really going to help you. Or if you need some coaching and training to get yourself to that next level, you should consider getting in touch with us. We have an amazing team that will bring you closer to your musical goals. So today's topic's really important because arrangement is a skill, unfortunately, a skill you actually have to learn a bit for yourself. And I'll tell you why. If you're not just playing classical music, I guess if you're just playing Mozart sonatas and concertos and classical works, you don't have to learn arrangement skills. You can just play exactly what's on the score and you let the arrangements made by those wonderful composers do the work for you. But you obviously put all of the work into learning how to play it. But if you're playing anything else outside that realm, popular music, jazz, musical theatre, you name it, you're going to have to at some point do some arrangements yourself, because what's even in those books, the books that have arrangements of this music already often have a lot of problems in them. One problem is the arrangement might just be far too advanced or far too easy for you and it's not at your level. So self-arranging means you can make things bespoke to your own level. Very, very useful skill. And the second thing is you can just correct a lot of bad arrangements out there. And I'm afraid to say there's a lot of really, really bad arrangements out there. You just pick a pop song, go find the sheet music of it on the internet. And oh my gosh, you have to go through just absolute troughs of terrible, terrible, terrible arrangements to even find something that's half good is hard. So I'm going to teach you some strategies. It's more important you invest some time into learning these strategies and you can start doing some self-arrangement. So I'm going to teach you about the power of spreading our chords over our 10 fingers with four-part arrangement. This is a really good foundation, I would say. It's not everything. There's other factors in arranging, but it's a really good foundation that we can look at. So what exactly is four-part arranging? What it often is it's where we're spreading the chord across both hands. So rather than me just playing a C major chord like this, or an E flat major chord like this, or this, and that's all fine, there's a time and a place for it, we're actually spreading it over both hands. Like we can voice a C major chord like this, or like this, or we could voice the C minor chord like this, with the 10th in the left hand. So we're using intervals in both hands to build the chord. And this originates from choir music, actually, and it works beautifully on the piano. So I'm going to start with an arrangement here that comes from a book, and I'm not going to mention the book or rubbish the book because there are some good books out there that still have bad arrangements in them, and there might be reasons for the bad arrangements because it might be just useful for students or convenient. But this is a bit of a pet peeve. I see this in a lot of classical arrangements of pieces that might have been written for orchestra and they've been brought over to piano. So this is a popular tune, Dvořák's New World Symphony, and the arrangement goes like this. And this is the sort of thing we actually want to avoid, but let me play it to you just for the sake of seeing it. Now, the problem with that voicing in the left hand, the C to the G7, I know the chords have been simplified, and that's okay because we sometimes need that to get some clarity. But the problem is the voicing, this C major to G7. That's just a terrible voicing. It's not really ever used in real music. So four-part harmony can fix this problem. So we can get this lovely melody and just reduce the chord to 2 notes only in the left hand. So we could play the C major like this, and we could play the G7 like this. Much nicer, isn't it? I'm just slicing out 2 notes from the G major chord. And in the right hand, I've got the melody. That's even more simple and it sounds better. So if you ever see something like that in a method book, like this, you can replace it with something like this, and it's much more effective. However, we're going to go further. We're going to make 4-part arrangement out of this. So what we can do is we can then harmonize the melody in the right hand with an extra note from the chord. And we get something like this. I put it together. I finished with the E in the left hand there because my note had gotten low in the right hand, so I couldn't sort of squeeze the E in the right hand. I wanted to keep the melody at the top. But these are just little arrangement tools we can use to frame how we're going to use this in other pieces of music. That's a really simple example because it's only got 2 chords. And I even removed out of the G, the 7th. Let me find a way to add the 7th maybe before I move on to the next piece. Maybe I could do this. So I'm playing the 1st and the 7th in the left hand. 1st and 5th in the left hand. 1st and 7th. And in the right hand, I'm just adding some texture to the melody with the 3rd note of the chord underneath the melody. And you just try these things on for size. You just get a piece of music that might only have 2 chords, a simple method book type thing like that, and you can play it in these little 4-part arrangements rather than just putting the chord into the left hand, splashing that chord into the left hand and playing the melody in the right hand. It's much more elegant and it's not necessarily that hard to do. So that's a really good core technique to get us into 4-part arranging. And that's a nice example because it's only got 4 chords. Oh, sorry, it's only got 2 chords. 2 chords, but 4 notes. 2 notes in the left, 2 notes in the right. And I was finding different ways to voice that G7. Like that. G7, C major. It's quite nice. Now that brings us to a couple of, I'm not going to call them rules because I think rules is too strong a word. It brings us to some principles about 4-part harmony that can guide us a little bit moving forward. And one of the principles is that we want to avoid doubling the 3rd note, like the E in this case, in the C major chord. So if we end up with something like this, if there's an E in the melody, we'll put the G in the bass, the 5th note. So there's the first little principle or rule, is that the 3rd note from a major chord, we should avoid doubling it. And another little principle is the 5th note, we can actually even live without the 5th note. We can remove the 5th note. So that's pretty cool. Then there'll be some examples later today where we might not need the 5th note at all. We can do something like that. 3 C's and an E. That's because the 3rd note is strong enough that it actually can live without the 5th note. So there might be some examples where things like that happen. So we should avoid doubling the 3rd major note. We can double 3rd minor notes, by the way, because minor has a very different flavour to major. But major, maybe just 1/3 for the major, and we can remove the 5th. A couple of little principles you can write down there. Okay, before we do this on a jazz song, let's do this on some 2/5/1s because This is a principle that you can adhere to when you're creating these 4-part arrangements in your piano playing. And by the way, if you want to learn more about the work we do at the school, you should visit our website, contemporaryschoolofpiano.com, because we have a lot of great materials, including our free resources kit and our complete musician program that gives a full holistic training for playing the piano. So when we play, let's say, a 2-5-1 progression, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, what we're going to do is we're only going to play 2 notes in the left hand, and we're going to follow a formula here, and this formula can work really nicely. It's where we play the 7th, a 7th interval, a 3rd interval, and then a 7th interval. So for the D minor 7th, we do this. For the G major, we do this. For the C major 7, we do this. 7th, 3rd, 7th, 7th interval, 3rd interval, 7th interval. Now, in the right hand, we can choose a melody note that goes above that. Let's say the melody is this: D, D, C. It's quite a simple melody. So now what's the 4th note going to be to fill in that gap? So we've got 2 notes in the right and 2 notes in the left. Well, I could put the F here to fill out the chord. This is the 3rd note of the D minor 7. That works quite nicely, because then when I go to the G7, I'm already there on the 7th here with the F. And there's my C major 7. Now, you don't want to get too theoretical with this. You just want to try things for size and just get your hands on it and see what you can come up with. But that's a nice shape for a 2-5-1. It's a really nice voicing. Of course, we can do this in other keys. I know that might take a little bit more to work out. But if I'm losing you now, let me just give you a really nice thing to remember is this all stems from the left hand again. The fact that we're using combinations of 7th and 3rd intervals across our 2-5-1s. And let's say the melody was doing something else. Let's say the melody was doing this. How would I voice the right hand? Well, I could do this. Now, we don't want to get over, over semantics, I guess is the word, about our theory. We could be pragmatic with our theory. But here, I did double the 3rd. Now, it wasn't offensive, because the 7th was there, but perhaps I could change the left hand because I've got the 3rd note in the melody. And this is what happens when we arrange sometimes. So perhaps then I could put a 5th in the left hand instead. That's a good example of where I could use a 5th. And then I don't have that potential issue of doubling the 3rd. I mean, it's not a big issue, but if we find that 3rd is just sounding too strong, we can then replace it with something else in the left hand. I find it's just important to just play different variations of the same thing. It's the concept I'm trying to get across to you here, is that we've got 2 notes in the left, 2 in the right. This is like inversions on steroids. So if you need to watch some of our videos on inversions to get a bit more of a groundwork first, we do have them on our channel. So now let's go to a song example. And I've got one here. This song has a lot of chords in it, and it's a beautiful song. And it's a really good example. Now, let me just say one thing. There is no system to this. There is no like rules. It has to be done one way. There's just options, and then we just need to play through it and try different things on for size. And that's what I often have students doing. They just play it in different ways, try it on for size, and then their fingers and their muscle memory start to familiarize these different shapes. Now, if I look at the beautiful chords of this song, All the Things You Are, I can use mixtures of 3rd and 7th intervals here in the bass again, in the left hand, and it will work really nicely. For instance, I've got a 3rd for the F minor, 7th, 3rd, 7th, third, seventh, third. Worked really well, didn't it? Let's do those first 8 bars again. Third, seventh, third, seventh, third, seventh, third. Now on top of that, I'll add the melody. Let me continue in the same manner. Third, seventh, third, seventh, third, seventh. Okay, let's add some more notes to the right hand now. Just that extra note to fill out the chord, to add the rest of that chord. So that F minor, seventh. So that's the thing, is I can't have a perfect system for this because the melody will mean I'll have to be flexible because I want to have the melody at the top. So I've got the seventh here in the right hand underneath the melody. Let's try it on for size. I'll see what combinations I can come up with. Now, that wasn't perfect. There were a few problems I'm going to explain happening in that arrangement. But I just want to point out that perfection is not our goal here because we're arranging on the spot and we slowly learn and plan. So this is a really important point here I need to make. The journey is sometimes more important than the destination because you're learning how harmony fits together and how to arrange. That's a big skill. It really is. This is not easy. So you want to just take those steps of just expressing the music in that 4-part way. When I hear students doing that, it fills me with excitement, and I honestly don't want to dwell on like, oh, did you double the third here? And like, we take our time, we do this in steps, and you're not going to get this all in one go. I mean, this is totally new to many of you watching this. And it's not a sexy topic. It just is a really, really important topic. And, you know, most really important topics aren't sexy. Have you noticed that? It's just the reality. So don't shoot the messenger, hey? So now what we're going to do, I'm going to explain some of the problems that occur because of the melody. The melody means I have to change what's happening. And you would have noticed I wasn't always using thirds and sevenths in the left hand there. That's such a nice system, thirds and sevenths, when it's by itself. But sometimes the melody had thirds in it. Now, I was saying earlier, one of the principles of 4-part voicing, and this goes back to classical music, it goes back to Bach, it goes back to the invention of our harmony system. Composers had these wonderful principles they put together in the study of music polyphony, and it works. It's there for a reason. But we can double the third when it's minor. So in the melody, we've got the third here. So even if I just play the melody and the bass, you can see a lot of the time the third is in the melody in this beautiful song. That's why it sounds so beautiful. But it means if I play the third in the left hand, I'm doubling it, which is sort of okay on those minor chords, but maybe I want to avoid that on the major chords. So I can use the fifth here. It just gives me that extra note, gives me something else to do that's rather than just doubling the third. So I'm going to now play this again, and I'm sure it won't be perfect. I'm sure there'll be some imperfect voicings. That's fine. We're not doing an exam right now. We're playing music and expressing music beautifully. I don't think anyone goes to a gig and goes, that's an imperfect voicing by that jazz pianist. Really annoyed me in bar 34. No, you want to enjoy music. That's the purpose of it. So I'm going to just be a bit more flexible in my process with my left hand. And I'm going to use some octaves occasionally when there's sevenths in the melody. So I'm not doubling the seventh. That's another principle. Doubling the seventh can be a little bit too much. So I want to avoid doubling major thirds. I want to avoid doubling sevenths. And in those cases, I'll use fifths and octaves perhaps in the left hand. Maybe I'll use a ninth in the left hand if I want to sound a little bit more, just add a bit more sprinkle to the music, a bit more emotion, or a tenth in the left hand, which I can arpeggiate. So I've got a few more options now in the left hand. So, all right, I'm gonna play it. Wish me luck. Let's go. And that's the next step then. Once you've stripped it down to just those four voices, then we could perhaps add a fifth voice and put a chord in the right hand. So have three voices in the right hand. So it's like this. And having that foundation of having to force yourself to play it with just four voices is really powerful, because when you add extra voices, it actually becomes easier and less restrictive. It's quite restrictive having to play in those raw four voices, because you're limited for options. Like, where's my fifth? Where's my octave? Where's my seventh? Where's my third? You're constantly having to measure that and assess it on the spot in real time. And that's why I didn't play it perfectly, because I was having to measure and assess all of that. I couldn't just chill and improvise, So that's why it's a really good exercise. So now I'm going to add that third voice in the right hand. Now, I've added much more there, but actually, in a way, that's easier than the playing it in that really raw, austere way. And another really good way to practice it is just bass and melody. Just to really feel the shape of the music. 3-part texture. So we've got 2-part textures, we've got 3-part textures, 4-part textures, and so on. And it really gives you the framework of the music. So play around with the music. Don't just focus on the end destination. Oh, I've got to play it right. I've got to play it perfectly. No, no, no. You want to be able to play it in different ways and methodologies to build up your truer and deeper understanding of music. And it might not be the most sexiest topic out there, but it's a really important one. And for those of you who are a bit more serious about playing music and you want to have that deeper connection with music, I know something like this is going to really help you. So best of luck with the playing and the practice. Do reach out to us if you need coaching and help, because if you are more serious about your progress, you'd want to work with an incredible team like the team we have at the school who can help you through these wonderful musical challenges and the problem solving and the DIY of making music. And that's what it's all about. Get your hands dirty, play around with it, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.